Hello, everyone, and welcome to Executive Encore. Executive Encore is where we introduce women who are doing great work in helping other women remaster their life and work after 40, 50, 60, and beyond. I'm your host, Patricia Muir. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome an extraordinary guest, a coach, an author, an educator, a TEDx speaker, and a mom of three. How do we do it all? My guest's mission is to empower 1 million humans to boldly pivot into leadership, do the work that matters, and create an inclusive and joyful workplace. She's a powerhouse with decades of experience transforming failing school systems, breaking through red tape, and helping what she calls closet changemakers to discover their voice and step into their power. Please welcome Dr. Taryn Fletcher.
Thank you. Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And let me just make sure that I have the right. There we go. All your information is there, Taryn. Okay. Thank you for your patience. So, Taryn, welcome to my audience. You and I have spoken before about pivoting and pivoting to work that matters. So when you speak with such passion about pivoting into work that matters, can you please share with our audience why this step is so critical for becoming a leader that we all aspire to be?
Yes. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's amazing to be here. And you know what? This is what I want audience members to know. The most transformative change makers, they aren't just visionaries. They are masters at the pivot.
Mm-hmm.
And, in a world where we're really rewarding busyness over alignment, that we're scrolling all day, we're kind of on autopilot a lot.
Yes.
Many women particularly, but change makers of all walks of life, they find themselves stuck in work that no longer really fulfills them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're unsure about how to shift toward impactful, meaningful, intentional work.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it's not even so much that they don't know a shift is needed. I think we do know when we need to make a shift. We just don't know how.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's so important to be able to do fulfilling work because it's the fulfilling work that is going to stand the test of time and allow us to live in a pathway that leaves a legacy.
Okay. At what age do you think women in particular start thinking about a shift for legacy?
You know what? I think more and more we're thinking about it sooner in
I
our
hope
lives.
so. I hope so. Yes.
I don't think it's coming at the age of we're close to retirement. I think we're thinking about it at all ages and stages of our lives, particularly when we, step into careers. I think today, particularly our Gen Zers, they're thinking about their legacy right now and in their 20s.
Yes.
And I think we should honor that because there's so many ways that we can make an impact. And so the real question is, what do we want? What feels in alignment to us? What feels like the kind of meaningful work that we want to do?
Mm-hmm.
What makes us light up? And that should be driving us to decide what our career path looks like and what kind of pivots we need to make.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, because so many of us have gone through a track of one career. So at certain points, it can be quite scary because we've established a career and we're comfortable with who we are or the way we are being in that career. It could even be a long held vision, especially if it's one shared within the family. I can think of a couple of professionals that I know as their family's vision of who you're going to be, right? And we've held that vision for so long in our life and work. So I can understand why it would be quite a challenge to, once you recognize it, to make that shift. Yeah. So can you say a little more about being who we want to be at a particular part in our life?
Yeah, you know what? I think I talked about this nudge earlier when we hopped on the live. It's like, you know, we are often suppressing nudges that we feel. And I think that starts really early on. I mean, when I think about the work I do today and how early on I could see myself embodying that person, I was about 6 years old.
Mm,
I was about 6 years old, buzzing around classrooms, finished my work early, but would go and check on my neighbor, see if they needed help. You know, I was considered the social butterfly, but as early as 6 years old, I was told that, you know, you talk too much. You need
mm,
to sit down and follow the crowd. You need to be like the rest of the girls and boys in the classroom who just sat down and was really reticent and quiet and
mhm,
not really making a splash in the classroom, right? And so
mhm,
very early on, I learned how to play it safe. And
mhm,
that was from my own school experiences. And that turned into a young woman that would placate, you know, that turned into, I'm sorry, not placate, but I turned into someone that would want to be palatable, is the word that I was really looking for.
mhm,
Someone that wanted to gain validation from other people, you know? And so I think we slowly pick up on these ideas about how we should live.
mhm.
And the nudges are those little moves that help us, if we're listening to it, it helps us do differently. It helps
Yeah.
us be more in alignment with who we want to be. But oftentimes we're questioning, can I really do that? Can I really make this bold career change? Or maybe if it's not a bold career change, can I really be brave enough to step outside of this well-worn, prescribed pathway that I've been on for a while and do something differently?
Mhm,
Can I step away from the norm and really listen to my gut or listen to what my body is saying is the right next step for me? And
mhm.
so those are the ways in which we kind of identify how we can become more in alignment with the things that we want. It's really confronting a lot of the conditioning and a lot of the
Oh, yeah.
stories that we've been telling ourselves or that we've been told by society what it looks like to fit into a
Mm.
system and to not rock the boat.
Right, right. Can you remember any opportunities that were sort of outside of school and the conditioning of school for you to sit quiet and listen, that you now uh, go back to that experience and say, I want to bring that into my life now, that bravery that I had or that courage that I had at that time to do something different. Can you think of a time like that?
Oh man, I mean, I think the reason why I like to consider myself the pivot queen is because I have made so many bold changes and moves in my life. So I definitely bring so many of those experiences with me. I mean, one really bold move was the bold move into entrepreneurship. I mean, I was a school superintendent. I was living the dream. I on paper, I had my dream job, but as I said, I was frustrated. I was exhausted. I felt stuck. I really was playing by the rules, playing it
Mhm,
safe, and
mhm,
so it took me making a really bold move to walk away from what others would find like a 10-year cushy position that was going to be so safe and so easy for me to navigate. I wanted to do differently because I really felt like in that role, many times I felt like I wasn't able to lead the way that I knew I could.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so it required me to do differently, and that was so hard because so many people were able to see me in this pathway and say, but you have such a great job, but you're at the top of, you know, your career, this is what you wanted. And what I had to ask myself is to clarify exactly what it was that I wanted.
mhm.
What helped me do that and have more meaning and more purpose in my life was the birth of my third child.
Mm,
And so it was like baby number 3, like now or never. And we decided that we were going to have a 3rd child. And we learned very early on in our pregnancy that there was a 99.9% chance that our child would have trisomy 21, otherwise known as Down syndrome. And so for us, it completely rocked our world. It was a real struggle in the beginning to accept that. There was a lot of denial. There was a lot of guilt. There was a lot of misunderstandings about whether or not we could be the parents we wanted to be. We could be the parents that this child needed us to be. There was a lot of fear. And so, but it was in that moment, my purpose became really clear. I was really clear about the fact that I needed to be able to carve out space in the world for our son to exist without doubts or conditions about his worth. And the more and more I really stepped into that light and really begin to think about that purpose in a real way for myself and our son, I decided that that was work I wanted to be able to do across the world. I mean, where on the world or where in the world do we not want to feel like we are accepted and valued and loved for exactly who we are, right? I don't know one person that doesn't want that. And so that just began to be a mission of mine, and it turned into a business endeavor, and it turned into a life and career change.
Wow. So it started with a nudge, and it developed, and you could then see clarity for your path of what you were really passionate about. And that was quite a moment, I would imagine. And I would say a pivotal moment, like you say, right? Yeah. So you do work with businesses that are disrupting their models and their leadership. You often say that leadership is the missing piece for those who want to quickly grow and stand out. Can you expand on that? What your thinking is there?
Yes, because you know what? Leaders, they create waves. They
Mhm.
don't actually just stay in alignment with everyone and what everyone else is doing. They actually make waves. And I think now is the time where we need to be really aligned in our purpose. We need to be clear about what it looks like to stand in our integrity. We need to be willing to push back and challenge conditions that no longer fit us or the world around us. And
Mhm.
we need to take personal responsibility for the changes that we need to see in the world. And so now is the time that we need ambitious leaders that are ready to make waves. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I do think leadership is the bold piece that's missing in disruption in the workplace.
Okay, good. So that's when, although it leads to chaos, people do start to see their very clear vision of how they are going to be the leader and how they are going to make waves, but also to make change. So that takes us into the topic of your closet change makers. uh, I'm intrigued by that term, the closet change maker. How does one know if they might be a closet change maker? And how do you encourage them to step forward and perhaps elevate their leadership to become the leader that they know they're possible of being, but some things are holding them back?
Yeah, so I think we've all probably can recall a time when we've been a closet change maker. The way I define this is a closet change maker is a quiet disruptor. You know, in my world, it's a woman with deep, steady fire inside, but they keep it under wraps. You know, they're reliable. They're always the one people call on to get the work done. They're the person everyone counts on, but hardly ever gets the credit for the work.
Mm.
And so do you know any closet change makers?
Many that I would say many that are still in the closet. Okay.
Exactly.
I can even remember a pivotal moment for myself is I termed it as being behind the curtain. Like, you stay behind the curtain, you do all the production behind the curtain, but you don't step out onto your own stage. So now I do encourage the women that I work with that this is your stage, like step out, take the space up. Okay. All the things that we sort of hold back on. So yes, I can understand the closet changemakers and also the ones peeking behind the closet or peeking through the door, like, when is it my time? And one thing that I realized is that I can't wait for someone else to pull me out. I had to actually get out there. So
Exactly.
that was a big pivot for me in mindset. Took a bit of work after that to actually make that, I'd say, a practice that people would notice that, oh, okay, she's starting to speak up for herself, right? But yeah, I think that closet changemaker is a good term, and it does actually describe a lot of, especially women who are looking to be entrepreneurs, because that's their way of getting out of the closet, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
And you know what? I think there's so many examples around the world of how women are encouraged to be closet change makers.
Mhm.
Do be the worker bee, but you may not be able to be the face of the work, right? I remember even hearing that in my leadership journey. We know you can do the work, but we need this person to be the face of the work. You help it, keep it going. And young Taryn, who was a leader, almost looked at that as like, okay, that's the role I need to play,
Mhm.
because yes, I'm the person I can get this work done. But I think you said it best. It's like, when are you going to step on your own stage? Not because you've been given permission, but because you are deciding that's for you. And there is no need for permission to be granted.
Mhm.
Right. And so I think that is a major pivot that can be made. And for those that are feeling like, well, you know what, that does sound like me. And but I kind of like being behind the curtain. I like being backstage. Well, I mean, I would push on that and question, do you really? Because if you like being behind the stage, but then when you go to talk to your closest friends or your partner at home and you complain about not being appreciated or valued for the work that you do, perhaps some of that is your acceptance of being a closet change maker.
Mhm. Mhm. There's also the topic of visibility as well. And a lot of women come to a certain point where they feel they're even more invisible than they were before. But that
Mhm.
can actually be the time to pivot and make themselves, like, push themselves a little bit to be more visible. And it takes away that stigma of, oh, well, I'm at this stage now where I just have to fade into the background, right? And that's why this show is called Executive Encore. It's like time for you to go out and get credit for what you do so well. And if it means stepping out on the stage, be brave. Then that's why I have guests like you to help women to elevate their own leadership and be brave about that. Um, do you have anything else to say on that? I'd
Yeah.
like to share my takeaway after you
Yeah.
shared more.
I mean, yeah, because when I think about when one of the hardest questions that I had to answer for myself really early on in my journey when I was starting my pivot was, what do I want?
Mhm.
What do I want? And it's a tricky question for people to answer for themselves.
Mhm.
And if you're a woman and you're raising children and you're already in a career field and you might be the breadwinner and you're also responsible for different organizations and clubs that you're helping to run, and you are a dreamer in that you do find that there are things that you want for yourself, but they just can't make the want list because everyone else's wants come before yours.
Mhm.
That is a difficult question to answer then. What do I want? You mean me? Oh, wow. I don't know. I haven't thought about what I wanted.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's many audience members I know right now.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
And so that is, though, the first step to really getting more crystal clear on what you think your purpose might be.
Mhm.
Because at first, your want list may be insignificant ones. I remember when I created my want list, one of the things I wrote down was I wanted to remodel my bathroom. I mean, that's not really living in the land of purpose. But what it was saying to me was that I wanted to, I mean, what that was adjacent to was I wanted to actually increase my income and increase my um, ability to have more time to focus on something like that. I
Mhm.
wanted to be able to have indispensable income to remodel my house. Those are the things that were starting to trickle out, even when it was the small idea of remodeling your bathroom. I also remember saying, I want to be able to walk the neighborhood and have a coffee in the middle of the day, because that wasn't something
Mhm.
that I was afforded in the busy world of a school superintendent. My days were clocked very tightly. I was
Mm.
often busy, and if I wasn't in a meeting, I was in a school, and if I wasn't in a school, I was maybe with an organization and with other kinds of family members trying to support them. So I didn't really have what was considered fun leisure time for myself,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
these are things that I wanted that didn't necessarily add up to a purpose yet, but it was starting to tell me a little bit more about the gaps I was feeling in being able to be more fulfilled, the gaps between where I was and where I wanted to be. It was starting to highlight them.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so once you start to get some of that investigation happening and that research brewing about yourself, right, you can then start to think about, wow, you know what I really want? And then that's when the big really want starts to come in.
And what does that look like? So I'll go back to your remodeling of your bathroom and your ability to go out for a walk in the middle of the day. Is quite often we have a list of what we would like in our life or who do we want to be, but to actually imagine what that looks like and all the surrounding benefits. Like the remodel bathroom to me would be, I want my environment to support the person I'm going to be next, right? And that means the bathroom. So I totally
Or
get
just
that.
beautiful things around me, right? I think what you're kind of alluding to, which I would connect with, was this started to become a list that slowly morphed into some of the things that I valued in my life.
Yes.
I valued freedom of my time.
Mhm.
I valued being able to have the feeling of luxury around me.
Yes. Yes.
And I think these things start to build into something bigger. But when we can't even define at even the smallest level what it is that we want, it just really speaks to the lack of self-care that we're kind of just sitting in, right? It explains that or at least illuminates for us that there are desires and nudges and feelings that we've just decided before even thinking about them that they're not for us.
Yeah.
People like me don't get to have those things
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
until you start to see you can actually have everything that you want when it is aligned to your purpose, when it is aligned to your integrity, when you're willing to confront some of the vulnerabilities of the conditioning and the stories that you've been telling yourself about why you can't have them, and you're willing to take ownership and personal responsibility for
Yes.
being able to get them, then you can transition. And that's actually the framework that I use to help people pivot with purpose and power.
That's so powerful. And like that's one of the key takeaways from speaking with you today is that, you look at your leadership, you start small. Okay. You start small with that list of, what your wants are, how you'd like your life to be, and then connecting it with your values, seeing, or like, why does this make so much sense for me to do this? And then make one bold, intentional decision at a time, like not a lot, like just focus on them, whether it might be speaking up a meeting or pitching a new project, or someone I can think about is always served on a committee but was never the chair. She elevated herself to be the chair. So, there's things like that we can do that are shifts, right? So over time, it builds momentum and it brings us closer to the leader that we want to be or what we feel we can be deep down. I was actually thrilled, if I can share a story. I was thrilled to witness a breakthrough for one of my clients just recently. And that was her breakthrough to be able to influence a new direction in her business. It was in her business, but she was getting a lot of feedback from mentors, in fact, that she should be going in a particular direction. And she has this huge breakthrough that said, no, that's just going to be the same as everybody else who's going on in that industry and in that profession. I want to do something different. And so she has now elevated herself to a thought leader because she's really come out as differentiating herself from other entrepreneurs in this area. So I wanted to share that because that speaks to what you're talking about.
Yeah. I love that so much. And you know what? We've talked a little bit about personal kind of want lists and things like that. And I don't want leaders to think, well, I really want to transform my company, so I don't know what that has to do with me. Leadership is a lifestyle. Leadership is a lifestyle. So leaders who are really about it, living in their integrity, they don't turn leadership on and off.
Okay.
And so I think it's really important for you to be clear about your personal purpose and get clear on your personal integrity and how you align yourself with your purpose before you go in really working to massage a company vision. Because you know what? The way you think about your company vision, if your company vision isn't actually aligned to the things that you really care about, it's likely that you might not be in the right company.
Takes double the effort to be that two type of people, right?
It takes double the effort. And we see that your personal does bleed into your professional when you are leading big missions. You have to be truly in alignment with the mission that you're leading. And so you do need to be clear about who you are as an individual, the things that you want to accomplish, how you want to live, what you see yourself doing as a legacy in your life. That helps you to be a much more effective leader in a company or an organization.
And it might not even be in a business. It's just your personal leadership. How does that show up in your family, in your community? Because it's not all about work for everybody, right? It's not all about business. So, and I think that is something as well that people think that if they don't own a business or they aren't high up in a business, that they don't have a leadership quality when actually they do. And it can come out in so many different ways, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I have two questions for you.
Okay.
When did you realize that you needed to make a bold move? And you did mention about when your third child was born, but was there something before that made you a little agitated about the work that you were in, and you knew that you could be a different leader?
Well, you know, I grew up. I like to say I grew up in the classroom. My mother, and there's so many aunts and uncles in my family that were educators, and so I kind of always grew up knowing I would be a teacher of some sort. And so, but when I got into education and I had my first child, seeing the things I didn't like about how education were working for particularly students of color, it really triggered me to know that if I'm going to be in this world of education, I wanted to recreate it in ways that built spaces that I wanted my child to be in. You know what I'm saying? And each time when I was in a leadership position, I was always thinking, am I creating the spaces that I want for my child? Am I creating the spaces that I actually want to work in? Am I creating the kind of teams that I actually want to be on? And so me being able to almost like plop myself dead center into the work and see my family or people who looked like me reflected in that work, it really transformed how I thought about transformation. It really mattered that the transformation happened. It was deserving to the people that I was serving. And so
That's good. That's
yeah, and so I
inspirational.
think
Yeah.
that was such a pivotal moment. It almost feels like every time I have a baby, I have I reinvent myself. I'm not having any more kids, so it's gonna have to happen in a whole new way for me after that. But yeah, my first child was really a catalyst in me thinking about why education needed to change and what part I was gonna play in being that change.
I can understand that. So you mentioned that you had an exclusive offer for our audience to inspire perhaps the closet change makers in our audience. And I'm going to make a change to the ticker here so that we can get some information. And also, Taryn, just mention what you want to offer our audience, our special audience listening today.
Yes. For this special audience, thank you so much for tuning in. Hot off the press. So I have been feverishly writing a new book called The Pivot Plan. And the Pivot Plan is your tool to go from stuck and overlooked to leading with purpose, power, and pay that matches your impact. And so this book is not quite ready yet, but what I have for this special audience is a free audio summary of the book.
Okay.
So if you go to drtaryn.co/clarity, you are going to be able to hear through audio the secrets of how I pivoted from exhausted and undervalued and unseen to leading a movement that impacts lives boldly, intentionally, and every day, and how I am slowly but surely building a business and a legacy that will continue well beyond me and will create wealth in the hands of my children and their children. So I can't wait for you all to get that and to see exactly how I did it, because the pathway is right there for you. And even in listening, you can make a pivot today.
Well, for those who are listening rather than watching the video, it will be in the show notes, so you won't miss out. And for those of you who are watching the video, you'll see the information in the ticker at the bottom for Dr. Taryn's free audio book summary. And by all means, jot down that link, and you'll be on your way to getting something that hasn't really been launched out there yet. You'll be one of the first.
Right.
Yeah.
Hot off the press.
hot off the press. Yeah. So listeners, don't forget to grab your audio summary. And it's from the book. It is called The Pivot Plan, correct?
Yes. It's called The Pivot Plan, 5 Steps for Becoming Who You Say You Are. So that's the full title.
Okay. So I want to remind our guests who return on a regular basis that you'll, or even to let new visitors know that Dr. Taryn's story will be highlighted in the blog this week. And then in the Sunday Encore newsletter, there will be the full featured blog plus the videos there. And so lots of information with connections to Dr. Taryn. So I invite you to sign up for the newsletter. You can visit my website to do that, which is patriciamuir.com, patriciamuir.com. I'm going to put that one up so that you can see my contact information as well. And please comment on YouTube. Dr. Taryn and I will be very happy to engage in a conversation with you online and even connect with you offline as well. So until next time, take care of yourself, do what's best for you, and don't jeopardize what you've built for yourself.